Hello again, this is Father Christopher Etheridge bringing you this daily gospel and homily from the United States. Today is July 12th, Friday of the 14th week in Ordinary Time, and our gospel today comes from Matthew 10:16-23. Jesus said to his apostles, "Behold, I am sending you like sheep in the midst of wolves. So be shrewd as serpents and simple as doves. But beware of men, for they will hand you over to courts and scourge you in their synagogues, and you will be led before governors and kings for my sake, as a witness before them and the pagans. When they hand you over, do not worry about how you are to speak or what you are to say. You will be given at that moment what you are to say. For it will not be you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Brother will hand over brother to death, and the father his child. Children will rise up against parents and have them put to death. You will be hated by all because of my name. But whoever endures to the end will be saved. When they persecute you in one town, flee to another. Amen, I say to you, you will not finish the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes." The Gospel of the Lord. For the last several days, we have been listening to the section of St. Matthew's Gospel known as Jesus' missionary mandate. On Wednesday, we heard that Jesus called his apostles by name, appointing them to preach God's kingdom and empowering them to be instruments of God's healing power. Yesterday, Jesus continued to instruct his apostles on how they were to preach and act in their missionary endeavors. In particular, he gave them the first lesson on trusting in divine providence. They were instructed to take no extra material things with them. They were to make do with the bare minimum, entrusting to God's care all the rest. Today, that lesson in trusting in divine providence continues, but this time Jesus challenges them to depend on the Lord for not only the material things, but the spiritual things as well, like what they are to say and what they are to preach in times of difficulty. He calls them to embrace a greater poverty for love of God and souls. He calls them to expect and welcome rejection and persecution. This rejection and persecution will come from almost every walk of life, from government rulers down to their own near of kin. Jesus is not intending to alarm them, but prepare them for their missionary work. But in the end, he also comforts them by reminding them that this spiritual poverty will be a burden to them only on account of his name. As much as spiritual poverty opens the doors of one's heart to a deeper love for Jesus, so it is also the deeper love for Christ that widens one's heart to accept deeper forms of spiritual poverty, like persecution. Thus, Jesus is teaching his apostles and us that trust in God's providence is supported by these two traits: spiritual poverty and a deep love for Jesus. They are also sure signs, sure witnesses that we are truly acting on trust in God's providence and not simply fooling ourselves with wishful thinking. There are many people today who admire the idea of trusting in God's providence. But when rubber meets the road and some form of poverty or a moment to die to self comes along, they put on the brakes, they complain, they fuss, they wish that life's circumstances could be different. A sure sign that we are truly trusting in God's providence is our serene acceptance and wholehearted willingness to embrace any form of poverty, and especially persecution, for the sole love of Jesus Christ, who suffered persecution and suffered death on a cross for us. To be crucified with the crucified, enduring in love to the end, is the most radical testimony of trust in God's providence. May God bless you today and help you grow in loving trust of God's loving providence for you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed hearing the gospel and homily, I invite you to share it with someone you know who may also find it rewarding. and also to subscribe to the Catholic Voice channel. Please see in the description below if you would like to receive a text message for each daily gospel and homily. Please also keep our missionary priests throughout the world in your prayers. Thank you, and God bless.